The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
I'm the Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna stick on me.
Teflon Pan Man. Teflon Pan Man. Stick on me.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to All You Can Eat. It's the podcast about deliciousness, and I'm your host, Rob Rosenthal, coming to you with episode number 129, which is all about Morocco, from which I have just returned from a wonderful tour of a pretty amazing country that I want to tell you about. Because, you know, if you've heard me before, you know that my focus is always on delicious and deliciousness. And, you know, more times than not, obviously, that covers the area of food and eating it and cooking it and watching it and thinking about it and all that kind of stuff. But I've always said, and I maintain this now, that deliciousness can come from so many other different aspects of your life, including travel and culture and countries. And so this episode, 129 of All You Can Eat, is really because Morocco is on my mind. I literally just got back yesterday from it, and it's amazing to me. And I want to tell you all about Morocco, why it's so different, why it's worth visiting, and what I found fascinating and delicious, which obviously is going to include some really incredible food. Let me, when people ask, like, how was it? Well, it was amazing to go there. We had always wanted to go to that, not only that part of the world, but Morocco, because it always just seemed so kind of interesting and exotic and far away. And it is that. It's on the northern tip of the continent of Africa, which, from a positioning standpoint, puts it at very much what at some point was the center of the world. I mean, it's not very far south of Europe, and it's obviously it's in the top part of Africa, and really in so many ways is like a crossroads of different not only places but cultures. So what you see when you get to Morocco is you see a really rich, super rich cultural heritage that's been influenced by the Berbers, who were there 1,000 years ago and did some amazing things that I'll tell you about. The Arabs, obviously the Africans, the European cultures. In fact, it's just a brand new country. I mean, I don't know, you think of Morocco, I don't know what you think, but even though the Berbers were in this land 1,000 years ago, and the Romans thousands of years ago, the truth of the matter is that Morocco was established as an independent democratic nation in 1956. I mean, 1956, are you kidding me? America's older. So this is a really young country with really, really deep roots in all those cultures that I mentioned to you before, the Arabs, the Africans, the Romans, and that kind of thing. And when I think about Morocco and people say, how was it? Well, it was amazing. But the first thing I think about there is the explosion of vibrant colors. Like everywhere you look, you're seeing colors and patterns made of different textures and marbles and ceramics that they're making handmade generally, using their own earth and their own plants for color, their own flowers for smells. Because that's the other thing. I'm not only seeing wherever I go these bright, great colors and patterns, but also everything smells so sexy too. I mean, it's just beautiful over there. The scent everywhere you go. In addition to that, I will tell you, as a food guy, as a food journalist, you can't go wrong in Morocco. The food is outstanding. We'll talk about that. The people, I felt, were very nice, very calm, very friendly, very open, very hospitable. And that's important, because when you go into a faraway land, you don't want to feel too foreign. And there's no question that we're foreign. And this is a country that is 90% Muslim, right? They follow closely the Islam religion. 90% of them, and that government that the new country, a democratic country, 1956, is democratic, but they also do have a monarchy and a king, and he is very important. So much so that the government, which is democratic in the sense that they all vote for their representatives, serves at the pleasure of the king, who still has the ultimate power in this country, has his own private army, has 20 castles, none of which you will be able to get into, and that's fine. I don't know where I was going with this, but I mean, that's the nature of this place. The point is that you are in a foreign place, but yeah. But the people were, I think, delightful and charming and warm and welcoming for the most part. It was great. You're going to see some incredible sights that includes not only mosques but gardens, and you're going to experience, I think, a cultural mélange, a mixture of, as I said, Arab and African and Berber and European, which makes it. Really, for anybody, I mean, you don't have to necessarily be like a historical buff. You don't have to be into any particular kind of belief system. But man, if you're interested in what's going on in the world, if you're interested in experiencing different cultures, if you're interested in flavors and tastes and smells and colors that are different from what you see in pretty much anywhere else that I've ever gone, then this is then you have to consider going to Morocco. I mentioned 1975. I mentioned super deep roots. I mentioned that it's northern Africa. As far as like when to go, I mean, it depends. I'm there in the middle of February, so it's still winter. We're hiking in the mountains, so there's still snow. But yet, when we were down kind of closer to the sea level, I mean, the temperatures in winter are not terrible. They're 50s, they're 55, 45 at night, 55 to 60 during the day. And down further in Marrakesh, 70, 72, 77. So depending on where you are in the country, north and south, even in February, you can go. And I mean, even though it was, I wouldn't call it not crowded, it's certainly not high season. I think people will tend to go more in your May and your June and your July and maybe earlier in the September, October, November. So you can pretty much go anytime. You could look up, depending on your availability, obviously what it's going to be like when you show up there. If weather is a factor, but again for me, we're there in the middle of February and it's no problem. We bought some warm clothes to go up into the mountains and some short sleeve shirts to be trekking around Marrakesh. So. Which reminds me of, again, one of the reasons that you're there is because you're going to see things that are quite unique. That includes like the Medina, which is a marketplace, and the idea of a marketplace in this part of the world goes back, again, thousands of years. And it's amazing to see. In fact, the Medina in Marrakesh is one of those UNESCO World Heritage Sites. So, you're going to get, and it's famous, you get narrow streets, you get traditional homes, you get these crazy vibrant markets. And I got to tell you something. I mean, I come from New York City, but the Medina in Marrakesh, and it was a madhouse. It's not only people walking these thin aisles, these thin streets, but on these same streets are guys with these huge carts. Then there's the mule that's dragging, product and supplies from one place to another, and then there's motorbikes and scooters. Everybody working in all directions at one time. It is a veritable madhouse, but fascinating and fantastic. You also have the access. We didn't happen to go to the Sahara Desert, but it does cover a large part of Morocco. You can see that. There are some other cities that you can go see. You can go into the Atlas Mountains, which we did, and as I mentioned, snow-capped and deep gorges and gorges, fabulous valleys, beautiful hiking. Really one of the highlights to be out there and hiking. So if you have that kind of, interest, that's certainly something that's worth doing. You can also enjoy, as we did, some just lovely Moroccan food, beautiful spices that, they've been mastering now for, again, hundreds, if not thousands of years. A lot of, what I would call vegetable forward food, like the Moroccan salad is 5 or 6 or 7 plates worth of little dishes that can be carrots and fava beans and peppers and tomatoes. So like that's a very traditional thing to start off there with Moroccan salads, all veg. And of course they have, other vegetarian food that we can talk about, which we will, and, couscous and all that kind of stuff. So certainly great food everywhere that we went. Was not disappointed anywhere with the food. Visited another city there called Rabat, R-A-B-A-T, which is like the I felt it was modern and clean, and the government, headquarters, and big and beautiful tree-lined streets, and lovely, kind of art galleries, and a beautiful, hotel. So really a modern, like just Rabat was. I was kind of impressed with that. There are places that you can go. A city called Volubilis. Wow, Roman ruins, worth the trip over there. It was the furthest west point that the Romans had settled. And it was kind of fascinating because, man, those Romans, hey, shout out to the Romans. What they did all those years ago in terms of building little cities that had their own unique kind of architecture and pools and in the fancy homes and designs and water supply from aqueducts and the building of a sewage system and hot baths and bakeries and stores and man. But I'll tell you what, as impressed as one can be. So this is it's the Roman ruins over there in Morocco. I would say worth the side trip if you're in. That's one where if you're interested in history. But great. And I was going to say that as far as being impressed by the Romans, man, I'll tell you something. You go back, Berber culture dates back 1,000 years. Like that's a long freaking time ago. But what these people did, these Berbers did, was astronomically brilliant in terms of creating tools, in terms of using what the land provided to build and to make jewelry and to make clothes and to just, I don't know how they came up with what they came up. I mean, like here we are in the year, 2023. We're impressed with technology because we have an internet. But imagine 1,000 or 2,000 years ago building entire cities out of what existed solely in the land. Kind of amazing. Then, of course, I enjoyed my very first Hammam. Thank you, Hamman, an old Moroccan bathing situation where essentially you sit in a steam room and you get all sweaty, and then someone will give you a beautiful, nice, hot scrubbing down with a loofah, which was like some pretty serious sandpaper. So they exfoliate your entire skin and then wash you down with some soap that's made from olive oil. The Hammam, man, that's also another great thing to do over there. You want to do that. You can go, as we did, to a factory where they're making, tiles that you see everywhere. And when I say making, I mean from pulling clay out of the ground to heating it in a kiln to cutting it into shapes to designing intricate patterns to the way that they colored them, with what came out of the earth. All natural, all handmade, stunning. I mean, it's really super impressive to go see. You can also go see, as we did, a fabric being made. Because everywhere you look at the land, and they have a lot of agricultural, a lot of beautiful, fertile grounds out there, which are growing, olives that they've been growing for centuries. The Moroccans make a beautiful wine, so you're going to see some vineyards, but you're going to see mostly, olive trees. It's amazing. But you're also going to see a lot of sheep, and they really know how to use the sheep, man, because you go to one of these fabric making places and you can watch how they turn sheep's wool into everything, and how they use fabrics to make not only clothes, but to make, of course, the very famous rugs and carpets and tapestries, and how they get silk and where that comes from. Yeah, I mean, it's not like a lot of other places. The Berber culture I mentioned, you ought to get yourself to a Berber museum. The religious thing is interesting because, like I said, 90% of that country is practicing Islam, and there are 3 times a day that you're going to hear what they call the call to prayer over a loudspeaker that projects pretty much wherever you are, and that's some imam somewhere inviting his followers to pray. And, the praying there is serious. They do what's called an ablution, which is a very thorough cleansing of their own body, and then they get down and they do all the prayers, and it's quite something. But all good. When it comes to, so here's the thing. One of the places that you can consider going, and we went first, was to Fez. We spell it F-E-Z, they spell it F-E-S, no matter how you spell it. I believe it's the largest pedestrian-only city in the world. I think there's like 160,000, 165,000 citizens inhabitants really is the word I'm looking for, but you won't see a car in there. And you won't see motor vehicles really in there. But Fez that's a fascinating, city. Medina, marketplace, pathways, narrow, sights, smells that you can't imagine. And bargaining. I mean, part of the fun over there is to find something it is that you want and get into a negotiation with, by the way, with people who have been doing it a lot longer and a lot better and a lot more effectively than you have. And that's fine. I saw a couple of things I liked here and there. I was able to get myself to buying, spices because they probably in this country, I mean, look, a lot of countries have spices. It's just that the spice trade goes back here, historically a long, long time ago. And it was essentially the coin of the realm. It was what they used to trade. I'll give you this for this. I'll give you sugar for wool. I'll give you olive oil for something. I mean, even the oil there, and again, their Moroccan olives are fantastic. You'll see them everywhere. But they're not only used, to eat or to use olive oil for cooking. They make soap and shampoo out of olive oil because, it's really one of the great ingredients in the world. You are going to want to go to Fez, I suppose, if you can. Generally, as far as Casablanca goes, all due respect, but that's a big old city right there, and there's not a ton necessarily to. There are other places in that country. Here's the diplomatic way of saying it. You can fly in and out of the airport there in, not Marrakesh, but Casablanca. Casablanca, sorry. You can fly in and out of Casablanca. You don't have to really spend a ton of time in Casablanca because there's other places to see more fascinating, beautiful things, and one of them is the Medina at Fez. I would say if you're the kind of person who is intrigued by some nice outdoor exercise and hiking, you may want to get yourself over to the High Atlas Mountains, they are called. And that mountain range runs pretty much from like 0 to 14,000 kind of feet. I think we were at the 6 or 7 or 8,000 foot range, so we're in the middle. And the reason for that is because in midwinter they actually close off the route to the summit because it's too, snowy, dangerous, slippery to get to. But I'll tell you what, we took a hike there, I would say of about 2 hours into the 7,000 foot zone, and it's gorgeous and was well worth that trip. And you don't have to bring your hiking boots with you because someone will make them available to you. You will bring some layers and warm clothes, but beautiful up there. And I'll also tell you, by the way, that when we got to the Kasbah, the Toubkal, the town is Toubkal, Toubkal, we had a choice of either walking up the hill to our hotel or taking a mule up there. That's the choice. And the walk up the hill would have been muddy, and it would have been, I would say, 20, 25 minutes. Doable, but we opted to hop on the mule, which for me was, to be honest, it was a little nerve-wracking. Going up a hill on kind of a windy, rocky path to our hotel up there, and it was a little nerve-wracking for me. But ultimately, it turns out that the mule, who has been doing this for a lot longer than I have and you have, and whose ancestors have been trained to do this for generations, is a lot safer way to get up the hill than even walking on your own is. You will be able to get a guide, which you're going to need to hike you through the mountains. And if you're lucky, you will end up in the mountains where you can enjoy a beautiful Berber lunch, or you will bring a picnic, and super delightful and well worth the trip. You will also want to see, which I mentioned, potentially, Rabat. Now, we ended up, let's see, what was that place? Where did we end up in Rabat? A beautiful resort called La Villa des Orangers. Well, like La Villa, D-E-S, de Orangers. Orangers is how it's spelled, O-R-A-N-G-E-R-S. Terrific little place. Folks, have any interest in knowing where I might recommend staying, or any specifics with regard to kind of individual restaurants or sites or that kind of thing that I don't mention here, I want you to feel free to get in touch with me. The easiest way to do that is to go to realrobrosenthal.com, and you can scroll through to the bottom. There's a contact form, which will allow you just to send me whatever kind of message you want. Say, hey, Rob, I know you mentioned some lovely hotel in Rabat. I'd like to know what it is. I'm happy to hear from you and get back to you. And folks, you're going to want to go one way or the other also to Marrakesh. Yes, they're taking me to Marrakesh, and that is a larger city, Medina, the old walled Medina that you are going to go to, and you're going to see beautiful mosques and beautiful gardens, and you're going to see the gardens of, well, two. Here's one, for example, Majorelle. The Jardin Majorelle, I'm saying it Majorelle, M-A-J-O-R-E-L-L-E, it's probably Majorelle, right? Belonged to Yves Saint Laurent, the famous French designer, and that's worth going to, and beautiful. Of course, there are other great sites to see in Marrakesh. The most kind of the most time-consuming of which will be to be inside that Medina, because you could be in there for 2 or 3 days, and we were, and there will still be things that you haven't seen. And when you get inside that Medina, you not only are you going to see craftsmen, and not only are you going to see art, and not only are you going to see fashion, and but marketplaces like stalls and stalls and stalls of butchers, stalls and stalls and stalls of olives and condiments, stalls and stalls and stalls of handmade light fixtures, and somebody else making chess pieces, and somebody else. It's one thing after another, and you could literally spend, and I think we did 2-3 days in there. But there's also a modern part of Marrakesh, which is also worth taking a float around and seeing what's going on over there, because there's beautiful fashion. I bought myself a little thing here and there. Again, stores that you can buy perfumes and colognes and fragrances, tapestries, all that stuff going on. You are going to want to go to a place called Bacha, B-A-C-H-A, could be Baca, B-A-C-H-A, Coffee, which is a coffee house inside a museum. And you're going to go in there, and you're going to go inside the museum, which is the museum is the Dar, called the Dar El Bacha. And you go into that museum, and even, once you get in the museum, you actually have to make a reservation to have the Bacha coffee. But I want to tell you something. I don't think I've ever had better coffee in my life. And you'll have a choice coming to you literally in a book that looks like, you ever go into a restaurant that had a wine list where you had to go through an entire book? Well, that's what it's like, the coffee here. And so, mine was like flavored with that like a hazelnutty flavor. The coffee was brilliant. You can also grab a bite in there. I must say that when I saw that they had toasted croissant filled with melted Gruyere cheese. That was just a fantastic a stop at the Dar El Bacha. This is again in Marrakesh, and you're also going to want to go into any one of the spice stores that you see. They call them herboristeries, right? Because they are predicated on having herbs, and they will happily offer you a little. A tutorial on what's available of all the herbs and the spices and the ointments and the creams and the perfumes and the essential oils or the herb teas, etc., etc. Each of which serves some purpose. They have, teas that are good for your, blood pressure. Other teas that might help you relax, and others that are good to make, make you slim. You have all the natural and essential oils over there. Argan oil right now is a cosmetic oil that is super popular around the world, and somebody over here in Marrakesh or Morocco will tell you that they have the ultimate kind of the purest, and they may, and whatever, and so you have that. There'll be orange blossom oil and rose oil, jasmine oil, eucalyptus. You can't even believe everything that they have in this place. And I'm all, I'm fine. I'll try anything, but I'm really there because the spices. And when you smell the spices that you smell, when you smell the cumin over there, you go, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll take some of that because that smells nicer and better and deeper and richer than any cumin that I've had before. And you're going to get yourself a spice over there called Ras El Hanout, which I think literally translates into like top of the shop. Like this is the best of the best. It's a blend, or what you might call a Moroccan curry. And you can use this for anything. You can, Ras is pretty general purpose. You could use it for meat, vegetables, couscous, and tagine, which we'll talk about, and just an amazing flavor. I just brought back a ton of Ras El Hanout. Of course, there's different blends, and that's fine. You can learn about that. There's kind of your normal one. Oh, this one we mixed with like 25 different flavors. Oh, this one is with 15. This one is kind of spicier and deeper, so this is better for chicken. But I would say unquestionably, you're going to find yourself at an herb store, and you're going to get your hands on whatever is most appealing to you, because it's really phenomenally great stuff, and you can package it nicely, and you can bring it back with you as a gift for your family and friends, and you can cook with it. So it's really kind of fantastic. And I learned also what I thought was a very important trick or hint. The spice guy, and these guys are all, when I say guys, but that's mostly who I was dealing with over there, trained in this. These are not just salespeople. I mean, they're good at selling, but these are people that have real experience in working with herbs and spices. Told me when I asked him how long this was going to be good for. I was always under the impression that the kind of herbs and spices that we buy here in like the supermarket, the spices especially, they're good in your cabinet for if you keep them in a cool, dark place for like a year. No, this guy told me that if I put 3 or 4 or 5 drops of good oil in the bottom of a glass bell jar container and put my spices in there and shook it around, they'd be good for 5 years. So I thought that was an important piece of learning, let's put it that way. As far as the food, I will say that, I've been eating lamb for a lot of years, since the time that I was a kid. I like lamb. And not everybody does, because there are some people who believe that it's gamey, and, who am I to say maybe it is? I mean, I think that there are ways to prepare lamb so that it tastes not gaming. But when we first got to Marrakesh and everybody was hungry at 2 in the afternoon, temperature 75, our guide took us to a place that makes lamb. I'm not sure, in fact, that they make anything but lamb. And as you walk in to this, it's not exactly, it's a restaurant, but it's not like there's no tablecloths. This is more of like, diners, drive-ins, and dives, that show? I mean, there's no tablecloths. there's not even necessarily silverware, but that's not the point. There's lamb. You're here for the lamb. And when you walk into the restaurant, not only do you see a line of people waiting to take lamb to go, but if you look deep into the ground where there is a hole and heat coming out, you can see a whole lot of baby lambs on spits roasting underground. Then you fight for a table and you get one and you order lamb by the kilo. Our guide, and this was helpful, another reason that you may want to have a guide, ordered, I want to say, not 1 kilo, 1.5 kilos. So we're looking at over, about 3.5 pounds of lamb. He ordered the shoulder and the ribs. They came together. The lamb had been cooking underground with no seasoning for 8 hours. So by the time that chunk came to our table, it was still so piping hot you couldn't even put your fingers on it. But what you could see was that the skin was deeply, deeply crispy. I mean crunchy, crackly, crispy. And you could see the steam still coming out from the I want to say the chest. It was was the ribs. What are they connected to? Was it connected to the shoulder? Maybe with the shoulder. Or the breast of lamb, yeah, breast. And anyway, here's what I want to tell you. A couple of things. 1, baby lamb. 2, grass-fed, right, organic, free-ranging. Forget organic, free-ranging, grass-fed baby lamb roasting for 8 hours, which in and of itself is probably enough to know. But when you taste it, the first question is, you guys want silverware or you want to eat it with your hands? Well, we knew that the right way was with our hands, as hot as that was. Steaming hot. And you taste the lamb first without any seasoning, and it's still great. And there's zero gaminess. It's almost sweet. And when an animal eats pretty much only grass, you can almost get the sense of that in the eating. There's a cleanness to it, a lightness to it, an herbaceousness to it. And I was shocked, frankly, because after teaching people how to cook for years, I always find myself exclaiming that the most important ingredient in all of cooking will always be salt, because it brings out flavor. And yet here I am, eating a baby lamb that's roasted without seasoning, and it still tastes good. Like, how is it possible that this lamb tastes so good, and all you could taste is the lamb, whatever it was that the lamb was eating, which in this case was grass, and maybe the hit of char from spending 8 hours in a fireplace. Holy wow! And then it's served with, as if this isn't enough, cumin salt. They've got the best cumin in the world over there that they mix with salt. So when you pull off your slab of steaming hot and soft lamb, and you cover it with a piece of super crunchy skin, and you dip it in the cumin salt, that alone would be worth the price of the trip to Morocco, to Marrakesh. They also serve it with hot Moroccan bread, so you could give yourself the ultimate bite inside a piece of bread like that. And then you discover that the owner, chef, proprietor is the one guy who for 29 years was the exclusive lamb maker to the King of Morocco. Now, when I say exclusive lamb maker, he was the only guy making lamb, and guess what? Lamb was the only thing he made. Well, when it was time to, retire, move on, whatever, the king said, hey, go open your own lamb shop. And this is the place that you want to go in Morocco for no other reason than, after eating lamb for 50 years, I will tell you that it's the best lamb that I've ever had in my life. And I doubt that I'll ever have lamb as good again. Somewhere else in the Medina, in Fez, we came across a guy making soup, a big, giant vat of soup. And it was, at this point, it was still early, like 11:30, but we hadn't had anything to eat, so we were peckish going in. The soup looked good, it smelled good. The guide there said, you may want to have some of this soup. I said, sure. The soup was made of fava beans. The soup was poured into a bowl or a tureen, whatever you want to call it. The question that we were asked was, would you like some fresh grated garlic in there? Yes, it was the answer to that. You sit down at the table with your bowl of fava bean soup, steaming hot, green, fragrant, now with some crushed fresh garlic in it. You drop in some Moroccan olive oil. Give yourself a little hit of cumin if you want, a touch of salt, maybe some paprika. And that was also, I would say, one of the, no, not I would say, that was one of the, also the top 5 eating experiences that I had in Morocco. That soup at the Medina in the stall. Just awesome, perfect, fabulous. Vegetarian, right? Then you're going to, I'm on the subject, obviously, of Moroccan food, which is exciting, because then you're going to have tagine, which is the most famous kind of dish in all of Moroccan cooking. You can have a tagine that's made of different things. It could be made of chicken. You can have a vegetable tagine. You can have lamb, of course, beef, I think. So all of those things are available to you. You get to choose. They call it the dish a tagine, and it's actually served in a tagine, which you have seen before. It's got that cylindrical kind of cap over a circular plate, which heats directly on the fire. You can have your tagine served over, couscous, plain. However you like it, and I will say that it is extraordinarily good eating. And as I had mentioned previously, the Moroccan salads, I happen to have loved also the one that was made with fava beans, but of course there's going to be eggplant, and as I mentioned, there's going to be some carrots, and some else is going to be made of some greens, but the Moroccan salads are everywhere, and they're fantastic. The coffee I mentioned was as good as it gets. And they have another specialty in that country that's called a pastilla. I want to say Pastilla. Crunchy, kind of phyllo-esque covering of, in a savory pastilla, you could have pigeon. I had one with seafood and what appeared to be vermicelli-like noodles. So you get this combination of this beautiful, luxurious kind of seafood, in my case, with the crunchy phyllo-type covering on it. Fantastic food. But those pastillas can also be made, as I said, I think traditionally pigeon is one of the famous ones. They also do a dessert there that uses the same kind of layers of phyllo-esque dough, and there's going to be some powdered sugar. And what you see also in this country a lot is almonds. I see almond butter being made at the market, like fresh almond butter. Fantastic flavoring. You will see a lot of nuts, and you will see a lot of dates, and you will see a lot of figs. And all of these things, the nuts, the dates, the figs, the almonds, all of these type of things are used to make incredible, sensationally delicious cookies, pastries that use all these natural, fabulous combination of ingredients, and cinnamon and sugar and honey and all that kind of stuff. Fantastic. In fact, you may want to, and I know that we did. Let me see if I can tell you the name of this place. We went to the Cultural Museum, Culinary, here's what it's called, the Moroccan Culinary Arts Museum. That's also in Marrakesh. And, the Arts Museum itself is interesting, but we went there specifically to take a class in Moroccan cooking. So at some point, if their food intrigues you, if you're interested, you can also go and take a Moroccan cooking class. And believe me when I tell you, fantastic. And great fun and super learning experience, and so all good. I will also put an aside that the Moroccan wine is excellent. I think their olive oil is some of the best in the world. Their olives are fantastic, obviously. I mentioned the dates and the figs. You can get that argan oil, which generally is used, if it's not cooked, if it's just basic argan, is that what they call it, is great cosmetically. But they also do roast it, and some of that can be also used in their cooking. You're going to get their spices. They have fantastic oranges, which come from the influence of the Moors and the Spanish, because you're 2 hours away from Spain here, out of Casablanca. So just a fantastic food, cuisine, culture, deliciousness anywhere you go in Morocco, highlighted by, as I said, these soups, these salads, the greatest lamb ever. Chicken tagine was great. Vegetable tagine, couscous, lovely, really great eating over in this country. So, Morocco, yes. A long trip? Sure. Can you fly directly? Maybe you can, and maybe you can't, depending on where you are. I went two ways, which is to say I went through Paris, going on the way over, so you can go through Europe to get there. Spain, like for example, Barcelona is only a 2-hour flight to Casablanca, so you can go that way. And I'm sure depending on where you're coming from, whatever city you're coming from, there are probably direct flights through Casablanca and Royal Air Morocco. And have some mint tea, because I don't want to forget that the tea over in that country was, in Morocco, was great. There are places, by the way, I should throw this in there, that they don't actually serve alcohol. So even when we were up in the mountains there, or Casbah in the mountains, there was no wine, there was no liquor, there was no nothing. Then again, if you pop into the hotel that's owned by Sir Richard Branson, because you got that kind of bread to spend, I don't know, $1,000 a night, over there they were serving some wine and spirits. But up at our Casbah, up there in the mountains, none of that. And inside the walls of the Medina, you will not find wine. Generally, I think I'm right about this. You will generally not find wine and spirits, but their tea is worth drinking because it's fantastic. So Morocco, ladies and gentlemen, Berber, Arab, Spanish, Roman, French. There's still French written everywhere because they were the last colonizers, pre-1956 independence. So you get all of these blends of culture, you get incredible architecture, you get beautiful music, you get awesome food, a whole lot of traditions, amazing things to see, great people. What more can you ask on a vacation than that? The combination of beauty, deliciousness, culture, and there you have it, Morocco. As I said, if you need anything more from me, you can find me at realrobrosenthal.com. And if you want to reach me, you can do me through that website. If ever you want to listen to the podcast, you know that you can find it not only live on Wednesday nights on the Armed Radio Media Network, Global Network. It's Armed Radio Global. But by Thursday, the program is archived pretty much wherever you get your podcasts. That's iHeartRadio, it's Spotify, Amazon, Audible, all the basic places that you can get that. And I do hope that you will find me, because next week I'm coming back with another. Since after Morocco, I left and went immediately to Barcelona, Spain. So I want to tell you about the food in Spain. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for me. That's episode 129 of All You Can Eat, the podcast about deliciousness. I am your host, Rob Rosenthal. Thank you for tuning in. And remember, as I always say, life is short. So never waste a meal.
I'm the Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna stick on me.
Teflon Pan Man, Teflon Pan Man, stick on me.
You're listening to Armed Radio Global, playing 70s, 80s, 90s hits and the ones you missed. And you can find us in all the usual places. Armed Radio Global.